Okay. Um, Ruchi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Ruchi, that day you left the class. I don't know. In between, you left the class.
Yes, sorry सर कॉल आ गया था
अच्छा अच्छा ओके
जी
ओके
सॉरी
ये थोड़ा क्लास लेने के टाइम में ना थोड़ा कॉल को अवॉइड
यस सर सर फैमिली है ना तो कोई ना कोई कर ही देता है
अच्छा अच्छा ठीक है
सॉरी सर सॉरी फॉर
नो नो इट्स ओके
इंटरप्टिंग
okay just wait, I'm just connecting to my laptop and then we will
ओके ओके सर
just a minute Ruchi. Yeah, can you hear me now? Ruchi, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So, last class we were doing a house of Mr. Biswas, if I'm not wrong. Okay, I will tell you just a minute. Yeah. So, a house of Mr. Biswas. Yes, we were doing this. So, you find a house of Mr. Biswas follows, the um, just a minute. Yeah. So it follows. You find 1 minute. Huh. So you find our house of Mr. Vishwas, as I had told you last class about that a house of Mr. Biswas, follows the titular character from his unlucky, birth in rural Trinidad, though his repeated displacement, unsatisfying marriage to Shama Tulsi, lackluster, parenthood and financial missteps in his quest for a house to death in the city of Port Spain, and you find and this was at the age of, you know, um, at the age of 46. So you find throughout his life the romantic instability. Um, the unstable Mr. Biswas, who is prone to pride, disappointment, irrational optimism, and despair. Dreams of finding financial stability and a house for his family. When he finally buys the house he always wanted, it turns out to be a scam. The house is ill constructed and nearly uninhabitable, and Mr. Biswas is unable to pay his mortgage. His health declines. He gets laid off from the Sentinel, and he dies in the heart attack. So in the prologue, you find Mr. Biswas takes begins where it ends, with his firing depths and beautiful but crumbling house, which he brought after one nighttime visit that strategically hid its flaws, and still it was a better place to die than the Tulsi's house full of relatives. Although Mr. Viswas passes away, and with his little man, more than the mortgaged house, and at least he didn't die as one had been born unnecessary and unaccommodated. Okay, just a minute. Hello. Yeah.
Sir.
So you find that here you find Mr. Biswas's birth was decidedly unlucky and at a midnight and the most inauspicious of the hours he came out six fingered and born in a wrong way. So Pandit Sitaram want that he would be, lecher, thrive and a liar, and you find that he would lead to his parents' ruin, and that he would also stay away from the trees and water. So he receives the name Mohun. By the narrator insists and on calling him, Mr. Biswas, even from his earliest days. And his father Raghu was, miserly sugarcane worker who buried his earning in jars underground and superstitiously, insisted on staying home from work whenever Mr. Biswas sneezed. So while his elder brother Pratap and Prashad joined their father in the cane fields, Mr. Biswas was too, sickly and weak to work until his neighbor Dhari needed, someone to look after his new calf. And while he was, busy gazing at the shallow stream one day, the calf wandered off and drowned. Too afraid to tell, anyone, Mr. Biswas hid, under his father's bed until the whole village, assembled at the lake. And Raghu began, diving for the missing animal and boy, and he pulled up, the dead calf, but drowned while looking for Mr. Biswas, just as the protagonist arrived on the scene. So you find with the neighbors hunting, though the families garden at night looking for Raghu's, buried jars of money. Mr. Biswas's mother, Birti, decided to sell the land and move to her sister Tara's house in the town of Pagods. So later you find mm, in Pagods, Mr. Vishwas was fortunate. You find enough to go to school, and where he learned to read the authoritarian teacher, that is Lal, and began friendship with a local boy, that is Alec. So you find here that Alec, taught him to draw letters inquisitively. After getting kicked, out of the Pandit's apprenticeship with Jairam and his job at the, Ram shop with Tara's brother-in-law Bhandit. And Mr. Biswas, decided to work with Alec painting signs. So Mr. Biswas's sign, painting took him to the Tulsi's, manifestations and magnificent human Hanuman house in the town of Arvakas. So there you find um, where, an intimidating man named Seth, who was there, hired him to paint signs in the Tulsi store. Okay, so you find yeah, so you find there Mr. Bishwas immediately, fell in love with one of the Tulsi's daughter, girl of 16 named Shama, and wrote a love note. However, Mrs. Tulsi intercepted his note and, to his surprise, promptly offered him Shama's hand in marriage. And he accepted the offer and immediately, regretted his decision, but nevertheless moved, in an upstairs room at the Hanuman house, where dozens of family members cohabited in a tenous but relative harmony. So you find Mr. Biswas immediately hated his new surrounding, antagonized as many Tulsis as possible, including Shama and Shama's sister Chinta, Chinta's husband Govind, a devout and Orthodox brother-in-law named Hari, and Mrs. Tulsi's two studious sons who she paid special attention, and he despairingly named the two gods after spitting and throwing his food onto Ovad, the younger god. So Mr. Biswas received a hearty beating from Govind, and in order to leave the house immediately. So later you find that after his eviction, Mr. Biswas went to a remote village called the Chase. So here to run, a new store of the Tulsis had purchased there, and Shama initially, resented him for trying to paddle his own canoe and landing them into a tiny house in the middle of nowhere. So here you find, um, however, then they began to find some common, grounds, and you find she soon became pregnant, and their daughter, uh, Savvy, you find, was born soon thereafter. So all these instances, took place. So and some and you find, but the town towns people on was on. If you find the business was turning sour at the chase, and especially given Mr. Biswas's willingness to sell to the townspeople on credit, and eventually you find Mr. Biswas lost all his savings when a local strict fighting thug, Mangru, who sued him for damaging his credit, and with his whole family, Shama, Savi, and his son Anand at Hanuman house, and his sense of isolation at the chase growing, Mr. Vishwas began to cherish the community he found among the Tulsis in Arvakas, and let Seth talk him into in Suran Buning, the store at the chase. So you find Mr. Biswas's next destination was Greenvale, an estate near Arvacus, where he worked, overseeing workers under Seth, and he found his work tedious and his home life in a very in a tiny room in a shared barracks, exceedingly miserable. His only solace lay in reading the newspaper that the residents before him decided to use as a wallpaper, and he began dreaming of building his own house behind the groups of the tree nearby. So you find he unsuccessfully fought to claim, Savi from Hanuman house, and then after a nervous breakdown, you find that culminated in his attacking, Shama, and turned his attention to Anand, who agreed to stay. So you find he had already invested all his money in constructing a rudimentary house. And you find from reclaimed material with the help of a local builder, Mr. George McLean, where the father and son found a shared affinity for literature, philosophy, and um, science experiments. So you find, but soon thereafter, you know, after Mr. Biswas's puppy, that is Tarzan, showed up, dead on the doorstep, and severe lightning storm, tore the house to pieces, leaving Mr. Biswas again without a home. So you find the Tulsi his brother-in-law brought him and Anand back to Hanuman house, where he recovered and began to feel safe and even a little adventurous. So perhaps for the time, first time in his life, although he was finally united with all his children, including two new daughters, Maina and the infant Kamla. So Mr. Biswas is, walked out of the house with a small suitcase and no idea where to go. So Mr. Biswas, you find, jumped, haphazardly onto a bus to port of Spain, where he stayed with his sister Dehuti and her husband Ramchand in their ramshackle house on the periphery of the city, and he stumbled into the office of the Sentinel, a newspaper where an old friend from Arvacas, worked for some time. And although it took, him a day of unpaid sign, painting to convince Mr. Burnett, the editor, to give him a sort of at reporting, Mr. Biswas landed himself in an unpaid trial. Okay, so um, you find that um, here you find his initial stories about the dead babies were very uninspiring. But after, Daddy comes here in a coffin, Mr. Burnett was, impressed, and Mr. Biswas became a full-time reporter. And you find Mr. Biswas's family agreed to move to port of Spain, and Mrs. Tulsi offered, Mr. Biswas's family the spare room in her vacant house, where, for only $8 a month. Okay, so later you find soon a new regime took over the Sentinel. Mr. Biswas was no longer allowed to write Sentinel reports, but now was called to report, not distort. So management assigned him to cover cricket matches and court cases, always bare bone details, and fired Mr. Burnett. So with Mr. Biswas increasingly miserably, his children became reconnecting with their family in the countryside. First with Tara and her husband Ajodha, and later with the Tulsis at the Hanuman house. So you find, because of the fight with Seth, the Tulsis abruptly decided to leave Hanuman house for an estate at Short Hills in the north of Trinidad. Okay. So, and Mr. Biswas's family got kicked out of Mrs. Tulsi's house in Port of Spain once again. Mr. Biswas came to live, with the Tulsis, although this time he found it rather very inoffensive. So, particularly because Mrs. Tulsi was aging and indifferent, and however, you find the glorious estate began falling into deeper and deeper despair, threatening, the family's survival. Eventually, Mr. Viswas was forced out of the house after being accused of stealing. So you find, his prompting had his own, house built nearby. Unfortunately, the family's, attempt to burn and brush surrounding the house led them to, burn the house and down instead. So you find, luckily, however, Mrs. Tulsi's home in Port of Spain was again available, and Mr. Biswas moved back there with Govind and Chinta, their children. All the turtles and the window named Baste. The three brother-in-laws, quarreled endlessly but indirectly, and Govind and Turtle both, grew rich working for the Americans who built military bases and oil infrastructure in Trinidad during the World War II. And you find Mr. Viswas, started writing a column for the Sentinels Deserving Destitutes Fund, and he visited poor Trinidadians and picked one every day to win, sum of money, thereby losing his, mother Bipti and grieving deeply for the love and the connection he felt he had never shared with her. And Anand became, one of the school star pupil, beating his cousin and Vidyadhar in their rivalry by winning an exhibition scholarship to the local college. So all these things. So you find when Anand, started college, Mr. Vishwas found a new job conducting surveys for the community welfare department. And under the ambitious and beautiful Miss Logli, just he began, to feel like, most prominent of the house's brother-in-law. Mr. Viswas, learned that um, um, and then Turtle, bought his own, house across town, and Mrs. Tulsi was moving back in preparation for Awadz's return to from England. So, even when Awad arrived, he quickly took control, of the family, winning everyone's attention and reverence for his endless stories about medical adventures and politics in England and Russia. And he soon, alienated and angered Anand and Mr. Biswas and Mrs. Tulsi forced the Biswases to move out. So one day, what happened? Solicitor's clerk told Mr. Biswas about a house that he was trying to sell, and the same house where the protagonist died in the prologue. So Mr. Biswas, talked himself into buying it and borrowed, more than $4,000 from Ajodha and make this up purchase. So you find he moved his family into the new house only to discover that it was, shoddily constructed by the solicitor, clerk himself, and must, much worse, than comparably, priced house in the neighborhood. So then you find the epilogue which summarizes the last, 5 years of Mr. Biswas's life, and Anand and Savi, went abroad for the college, and Mr. Biswas, finally, grew to respect, Shama's rationality. So, and then he suffered, two heart attacks that left him hospitalized and sedentary and, savvy. I returned from the university and found a job that paid for, more than he had ever, made. And then the adamantly, secular Mr. Biswas wondered, how can you not, believe in God after this? And he died, shortly thereafter. Family from all around Trinidad attended his cremation, and then, then went back to their respective homes. So this is all about the text, um, the house of Mr. Biswas. Ruchi, am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, what else do you want me to tell you about this text?
Yes, sir. Chapter 3 हो गया.
No, this one is.
Hello.
Yes, yes, yes. Hello.
Yes, sir. सर बोलिए चैप्टर फिनिश हो गया.
ये वाला ब्लॉक ब्लॉक ये ब्लॉक 5 है.
ओके ओके सर ओके सर. यस सर ब्लॉक 5 है.
हाँ, ब्लॉक 5. ये ब्लॉक 5 का ये है ना. तुमको मैंने प्लॉट बोल दिया है. आई जस्ट टोल्ड यू द प्लॉट. And
ओके ओके
plus
सर.
we've already discussed about the summary, means summary, sorry, the characters. So anything else that you want to know from this
सर
particular?
नो सर सर.
Oh,
थैंक यू सर.
okay, okay, then we can end the session here today.
यस.
Thank you. Yeah.